In a small town, hidden in the heart of a busy city, a young girl sat alone in her room looking out the window. The world seemed to move on around her, but she felt disconnected as if she were invisible. School was hard. Home was harder. Each day she faced challenges that no one could see, struggles that she couldn't explain to anyone. Her classmates didn't understand her, and at home she didn't feel like she belonged. It was like she was constantly fighting an invisible battle. Every morning she dragged herself out of bed, knowing what the day would bring. She tried her best, but it never seemed enough. She was used to being quiet, to staying in the background, but it didn't stop the weight on her chest from growing heavier every day. She had dreams of being someone different, someone who mattered, but those dreams felt so far away, like stars in the sky, too distant to ever reach. Her hope had slowly faded until one day she realized she was just going through the motions, not really living. And that's when the thought first crossed her mind. What if no one even noticed her disappearance? That thought, a sudden and chilling realization, hit her like a thunderclap. It wasn't something she had planned, not really. But in the pit of her stomach, she knew she couldn't keep living like this. She had tried everything she could think of to get through it, but nothing seemed to work. Her efforts went unnoticed, her cries for help unheard. It felt as though the world had forgotten about her. The idea of disappearing, of vanishing into thin air, took root in her mind, but she couldn't just disappear. She needed someone to know. She needed someone to understand. So, in a moment of desperation, she thought of an idea, something that could bring attention to her plight. She knew it wasn't the best solution, but she couldn't see another way. She grabbed her phone, trembling as she typed a message that she hoped would reach the right people. It wasn't a message she had ever thought she'd need to send, but at that moment it was her only choice. An SOS. She wasn't sure who would see it or what would happen next, but she had to try. The phone buzzed in her hand as she pressed send, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. Would anyone care enough to respond? Would anyone hear her cry for help? She felt a mix of fear and relief. If someone saw it, if someone heard her, maybe, just maybe, her life could change. She sat back, her hands shaking, waiting for something, anything to happen. What she didn't know was that her message, her SOS, was about to catch the attention of two very unexpected people. On the other side of the world, two of the most famous figures in the entertainment industry, The Rock and John Cena, were scrolling through their social media feeds. They had seen their fair share of messages from fans, but this one stood out. The urgency in the message was undeniable, and they could feel the raw emotion behind it. It wasn't just another fan request. It was a call for help. The Rock, always one to stand up for people in need, felt a deep sense of responsibility. He wasn't sure what had prompted this young girl to reach out to him, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. He immediately began looking into her situation, trying to understand more about what was happening. Cena, too, was moved. He had seen so many people go through difficult times, and his heart went out to her. Both men had spent their lives helping others, through charity, through their actions, through their voices, and this was no different. They knew they had to do something, but how could they help? What could they possibly do for a girl they didn't even know? They thought about it for a moment. What would be the best way to reach out? What would make a real difference in her life? They knew that they couldn't just offer empty words of comfort. They had to take action. This wasn't about publicity or making themselves look good. This was about doing the right thing. The Rock, with his larger-than-life persona, had always used his platform to stand up for others, to show that people mattered. Cena, too, was known for his dedication to charitable causes, using his fame to bring attention to issues that needed it. Together, they made a decision. They would do whatever it took to help this girl. They didn't know exactly how, but they would find a way. Meanwhile, the girl, unaware of who had received her message, sat in her room, still waiting. Her hope had been fleeting, but there was something inside her that whispered it wasn't over. Not yet. The idea that someone out there cared about her, that someone would take action on her behalf, was enough to keep her from giving up completely. She didn't know how long it would take for someone to respond, or if anyone would at all. But for the first time in a long time, she felt a tiny spark of hope. What she didn't realize was that her message was about to ignite something much bigger. The Rock and Cena, both motivated by a deep sense of justice and compassion, were already making plans. They knew that their next steps were critical, and they needed to act fast. The girl had reached out to them in a moment of vulnerability, and they wouldn't let her down. In that small, quiet room, the girl clung to the hope that someone would answer her SOS. And somewhere out there, two powerful men, two icons, were already getting to work, determined to make sure that she would never feel invisible again. The Rock and John Cena sat in front of their phones staring at the message the young girl had sent. It was hard to believe how much pain and fear could be packed into such a small, simple message. The words were clear, the urgency unmistakable. It was a cry for help, raw and powerful. Both men had received plenty of messages over the years, but this one felt different. They knew they couldn't just let it pass by. The Rock immediately set up a video call with Cena. The decision had been made, but the next steps were critical. "We can't just offer her words of comfort. We need to act fast," The Rock said, his voice serious. Cena, nodding in agreement, replied, "Absolutely. We have the resources. We have the platforms. Let's figure out how to use them right now." They both knew that in order to make an impact, they had to do more than just send a message back. They had to ensure the girl's safety and well-being. And they had to do it in a way that wouldn't make her feel like a charity case. She deserved respect, dignity, and real help. "Let's start by finding out where she is," Cena said. The two men immediately got to work, reaching out to their contacts and using every tool at their disposal to gather information. The Rock used his connections in the entertainment industry to track down the girl's social media profiles, while Cena reached out to his charity partners to see if anyone could help pinpoint her location. Within hours, they had narrowed it down. She lived in a small town in the Midwest. It wasn't an area that received much attention. But now, it was the center of their focus. They didn't know everything about her situation, but they knew one thing for sure: she was in need, and they were going to do whatever they could to help. But they also knew that they couldn't just swoop in and fix everything. They had to be careful. The girl didn't know them, and while they had the best of intentions, they had to make sure that their involvement wouldn't overwhelm her. It was important to respect her space and her boundaries. They couldn't push too hard, but they couldn't wait too long either. "We need to reach out to the right people in her town," The Rock said. "We need to get in touch with local authorities, social workers, and anyone who might be able to offer immediate help. But we also need to keep her in the loop. She has to know we're here for her," Cena agreed. "We can't leave her hanging. But we have to do it in a way that makes her feel safe, not pressured. She needs to know we're coming from a place of support, not rescue." After a few more phone calls and messages, they were able to get in touch with a social worker in the girl's town. The social worker was a woman who had worked with young people for years, and she had seen firsthand the challenges kids in difficult situations faced. The Rock and Cena explained the situation to her, emphasizing that they weren't trying to take over, but they wanted to make sure the girl had the support she needed. The social worker was moved by their willingness to help, and she immediately set up a meeting to go over the next steps. "We can get her the help she needs, but we need to make sure she's willing to accept it. It's a delicate situation," the social worker said. Meanwhile, the girl sat in her room still staring at her phone, waiting for something to happen. She had sent the SOS, but nothing had changed yet. No one had reached out to her directly. She didn't even know who had seen her message, but a small part of her still believed that maybe, just maybe, someone would help her. As she waited, she found herself reflecting on everything she had been through. She thought about the loneliness, the pressure to fit in, the never-ending feeling of being unseen. She had tried to reach out to people before, but it always seemed to fall on deaf ears. But now she was beginning to wonder if this time would be different. Could someone really care? Could someone really make a difference? Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a new message. She hesitated before opening it, not knowing what to expect. But when she saw the name at the top of the message, her heart skipped a beat. It was The Rock, and next to his name was John Cena's. The two men who were famous for their strength and kindness had seen her message. They were reaching out to her. The message was short but filled with sincerity. "Hey there. We saw your message. We're here for you. We want to help. Please let us know how we can support you." The girl stared at the screen, her mind racing. This couldn't be real. The Rock and John Cena were reaching out to her. It felt like a dream. She never imagined that anyone, let alone two of the most famous people in the world, would take the time to respond. But the words were right there in front of her, and they were real. They wanted to help. Tears filled her eyes as she read the message over and over again. She had sent her SOS in desperation, unsure of what would happen. But now she felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She wasn't alone. The people she had admired from afar were now offering her a lifeline. Taking a deep breath, she responded, "Thank you. I don't know what to say. I don't even know what I need right now. But thank you for reaching out," the rock replied almost immediately. "We understand. Just know that we're here for you. We'll work with the right people to make sure you get everything you need. But most importantly, we want you to know that you matter. You're not invisible." That message was enough to break through the wall she had built around herself. She had spent so long feeling invisible, so long feeling like no one cared, that hearing those words from someone she had only seen on TV meant the world to her. And it wasn't just a message of support. It was a promise. The Rock and John Cena weren't going to let her fall through the cracks. They were going to help her get the support she needed and make sure she knew she was valued. For the first time in what felt like forever, the girl felt seen. And that small act of kindness, the simple act of reaching out, was the beginning of something that would change her life. The girl sat on her bed, the phone still in her hands, her heart racing. She couldn't believe it. She had actually received a message from The Rock and John Cena. People she had only ever seen on TV, who were known for their larger-than-life personas, were reaching out to her. It didn't seem real, but it was, and that made the world feel a little bit smaller, a little bit kinder. As the days passed, things started to move quickly. The Rock and Cena were true to their word. They didn't just send a message and leave it at that. They followed up, checking in regularly to make sure the girl felt heard. They even set up a video call so she could see them face to face. The girl, nervous at first, hesitated before accepting the call. But the moment the screen lit up and she saw the familiar faces of the two men, she felt a sense of comfort she hadn't known in a long time. "Hey there." The Rock greeted her with a warm smile. His deep voice, full of kindness and understanding, instantly put her at ease. "We just wanted to check in with you. How are you doing?" It was strange hearing someone like him ask how she was doing. It felt like something out of a movie, but this was real. John Cena, standing beside him, gave a reassuring nod. "We're here to help in any way we can. No pressure, though. Take your time. Whatever you need, we're ready to support you." The girl smiled shyly, her words coming out in a quiet rush. I don't know where to start. I just didn't know who else to turn to." The Rock nodded, his expression softening. "That's okay. Sometimes it's hard to know where to turn when everything feels like too much. But you're not alone in this. You've already taken a huge step by reaching out, and we're here for you. We just want to make sure you're safe and that you get the support you need." "I don't know what I need right now," she admitted, the weight of everything she'd been carrying still pressing down on her. "It's just, everything feels so overwhelming. School, home. I don't feel like I fit in anywhere." John Cena spoke up, his voice gentle but firm. "It's okay to feel that way. We all go through hard times, and sometimes it feels like there's no way out. But there is. You matter, and there's a lot of people who care about you. We're part of that group now." The girl blinked back tears, not knowing why, but feeling the flood of emotions she had been holding back for so long. She had spent so much time hiding her feelings, trying to deal with everything on her own. She didn't know how to accept help. But hearing their words, seeing the sincerity in their eyes, it felt different. She was starting to realize that maybe she didn't have to do it all alone. "We're going to make sure you're taken care of," The Rock continued. "But I also want to remind you that you have strength inside you. You've made it through every single day, and that's not easy. You've got more fight in you than you might realize." The girl listened intently, a mix of awe and disbelief in her expression. How could they be saying all this to her? They were famous, busy people with lives full of travel and responsibility. Why would they care about her? "We're starting with getting you some help in your town," Cena added. "We've reached out to people who can offer support, from social workers to counselors. We're setting everything up to make sure you get the resources you need." The girl felt a small flicker of hope. It was one thing to hear words of comfort. It was another to see that they were already taking action. They weren't just offering empty promises. They were actively working to make her situation better. "We've also been in touch with people who can help you find a way to feel like you belong, to help you with school and life outside of it," The Rock said. "It's about building a support system, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this together." For the first time in so long, the girl felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It wasn't everything. She knew that, but it was a start. She had never imagined that something so simple as reaching out could lead to this kind of support. But here she was, talking to two people who truly wanted to help her. Days passed, and as promised, the help started rolling in. The Rock and Cena's team had connected with local services, setting up appointments with counselors, mental health professionals, and other resources. The girl received texts and calls from the social workers who were now part of her support system, making sure she had everything she needed. But it wasn't just about therapy or resources. It was about knowing that people were thinking about her, checking in, and making sure she felt valued. The girl began to see things differently. She wasn't invisible anymore. People cared. The world, though often overwhelming and difficult, also had kindness in it. And now she was experiencing that firsthand. The girl's days began to change. She started attending counseling sessions, something she had been too afraid to try before. Talking to someone, expressing her feelings, started to ease some of the pain she had been holding inside. She wasn't magically fixed, but she was starting to feel like she had a fighting chance. The girl even began attending a local youth group, where she could meet other people her age and connect with them over shared interests and struggles. One afternoon, The Rock and Cena set up another video call. This time the girl felt more comfortable. She smiled when she saw them on the screen, her face no longer filled with doubt or fear. The change was slow, but it was real. "How are you feeling?" Cena asked, his face full of concern and care. "I'm better," she replied, her voice more confident than it had been before. "It's still hard, but I'm starting to understand that I don't have to carry it all by myself." The Rock smiled, his deep voice filled with encouragement. "That's exactly what we wanted to hear. You're not alone in this, and you never will be." As they talked, the girl felt a shift within her. She had spent so much time feeling stuck, wondering if anyone would care enough to help, and now she was realizing that not only had people cared, but they had actively worked to help her. Her life wasn't going to change overnight, but it was changing. "Little by little, step by step, I've been thinking," the girl said, her voice a little shy. Maybe I could help others too. Like you guys are helping me." "That's the spirit," The Rock said, clearly proud. "You have a lot of power to change things, not just for yourself, but for others too. Remember, you don't have to wait for a big moment to make a difference. It starts with small steps." She nodded, her heart swelling with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time she was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could be part of the change, and that was the most powerful feeling of all. As the weeks passed, the girl's life began to shift. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but the change was unmistakable. Each day felt like a small victory. She woke up with a sense of purpose, no longer just going through the motions. She had support now, something she had never truly felt before, and that made all the difference. Her counseling sessions were helping. At first, she was hesitant to open up, unsure of how to articulate the pain and confusion that had built up over the years. But with each conversation, she felt a little lighter. The counselor was patient, understanding, and helped her work through the emotions that had kept her trapped. Slowly, she began to untangle the knot of worries and fears that had been woven around her for so long. One afternoon, after another session, the girl sat in her room, reflecting on the progress she had made. She felt different, more in control of her own life. The support she had received from The Rock and John Cena, from the social workers, and from the local community programs had given her the strength to keep moving forward. She had once felt invisible, but now she was becoming someone who could make a difference, not just for herself, but for others too. It was during one of these quiet moments that she received another call from The Rock. The phone buzzed in her hand, and she answered with a smile. She had grown used to these calls, even looked forward to them. They weren't just a reminder of the help she had received, but also a source of motivation. "Hey, how's it going?" The Rock's voice was warm and full of care. "I'm doing better," she replied, feeling the familiar sense of gratitude swell inside her. "I've been going to the youth group, and it's helping. I've met a lot of people who understand what I'm going through." "That's great to hear," The Rock said. "That's exactly what we wanted for you, to find people who can relate, and to find a community where you feel like you belong." The girl nodded, looking out the window. She had started to feel like she was part of something bigger than herself. She was no longer alone in her struggles. Other people had faced similar challenges, and together, they were finding ways to overcome them. "I've also been thinking about what you said," the girl continued, her voice a little unsure at first. "About helping others. I didn't know how, but now I feel like I could do something." The rock was quiet for a moment, clearly moved. "You're already doing it. Just by sharing your story, by getting involved with others, you're showing people that they're not alone. You're inspiring people without even knowing it." The girl smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. It was hard to believe, but she was starting to see that maybe, just maybe, she had something to offer the world. She wasn't just the girl who had needed help. She was becoming someone who could give help, someone who could make a difference. Later that week, Cena called her, as promised. He had been checking in too, always supportive, always encouraging. Their conversations had become a regular part of her routine, a reminder that they hadn't forgotten about her. She wasn't just a cause to them. She was a person, and they treated her with the care and respect she deserved. "How's everything going?" Cena asked, his voice full of genuine concern. "It's going well," the girl said. "I've been feeling more confident. I'm starting to help out at the youth group, and I'm thinking about getting involved in a project to help other kids. I don't know where to start, but I feel like I want to give back." Cena's voice was filled with pride. "That's amazing. You've come such a long way. Just remember, it doesn't have to be anything big. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest impact. It's all about reaching out, even if it's just one person at a time." The girl thought about that for a moment. She had spent so much of her life feeling alone, and now, she was beginning to understand that the best way to heal was to help others. It didn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be something as simple as listening to someone, offering a kind word, or sharing her story. That was enough. Over the next few months, the girl became more and more involved in her community. She helped organize events at the youth group, volunteered at local shelters, and spoke to others about her experiences. She found that when she gave a little of herself, she received so much more in return. The connections she made with others, the friendships she formed, filled the empty spaces inside her that she hadn't even known were there. Her transformation was not just about what she had received. It was also about what she was able to give. The girl had started to realize that her struggles didn't define her. They were a part of her, yes, but they didn't have to control her. She was stronger now, more resilient, and she had a new perspective on life. The support she had received had shown her the power of compassion, and now she was passing that on to others. One day, she received a letter from a local school district. It was an invitation to speak at a community event about her experiences. The letter explained that they had heard about her story and wanted her to share how she had overcome her challenges and found a way to give back. At first, she was nervous. Speaking in front of people was something she had always avoided. But something inside her told her that this was an opportunity to make a difference. With The Rock and Cena's encouragement still fresh in her mind, she decided to accept. She spent the next few days preparing, writing down her thoughts and reflecting on the journey she had taken. The girl had come so far, and she knew that sharing her story could help others who were struggling like she had. The day of the event arrived, and the girl stood in front of a crowd of strangers. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but as she looked out at the faces in the audience, she remembered what Cena had told her. It's all about reaching out, one person at a time. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She talked about her struggles, about feeling invisible, about the pain of not fitting in, but she also talked about the turning point, the moment when she realized that she didn't have to face everything alone. She shared how The Rock and Cena had reached out to her, how their kindness and support had given her the strength to change. And she talked about how by giving back she had found a new purpose. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment, and then, to her surprise, there was applause. The girl's heart swelled as she looked out at the faces of the people in the crowd. She had never imagined that something like this would happen. She wasn't just the girl who needed help anymore. She was the girl who could inspire others to keep going, to find their strength, and to make a difference. After the event, people came up to thank her, to tell her that her story had touched them. The girl realized that just like The Rock and Cena had done for her, she could make a difference in someone else's life, even if it was just by being there. It wasn't the end of her journey, but it was another step forward. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she was excited to find out. And that was enough. Months had passed since the girl had first sent her SOS. She was no longer the same person who had felt invisible and overwhelmed by the weight of the world. She had grown in ways she never imagined possible. She now walked through her days with a new sense of purpose and confidence, feeling the strength that had once seemed so far out of reach. Her life was still a journey, and she knew there were days ahead that would challenge her, but now she had the tools to face those challenges. She had the support of The Rock, John Cena, and a growing circle of people who cared for her, and she had begun to understand the power of helping others. It wasn't just about receiving help anymore. It was about being part of something larger, something that made a difference in people's lives. One afternoon, as the girl was sitting in the local community center, organizing a youth event for the group she had become so involved with, her phone buzzed. She looked down, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the name on the screen, The Rock. It had become a familiar sight, the check-ins that she had grown to appreciate. Over the past months, he had continued to encourage her, not just with words but with actions, always making sure she knew that she had people who cared. She answered the call quickly, excited to hear from him. "Hey there," The Rock greeted, his voice warm and kind. "I wanted to check in and see how things were going. How's everything with the event?" "Everything's going well," she replied, her voice filled with a new sense of calm. "It's amazing to see how many people have shown up and want to be part of something positive. I didn't realize how much of an impact this could have." The Rock smiled, his voice radiating pride. "That's the power of community. You've created something special. You've gone from being someone who needed help to someone who's helping others. That's a big deal." The girl paused for a moment, reflecting on his words. It had been a big deal. She had been through so much to get to this point. But it hadn't been just about her struggles. It had been about finding a way to turn those struggles into something meaningful, to give back in a way that could create ripples of kindness. "I've been thinking about something," she said after a pause. "I want to keep doing this. I want to help people in a bigger way, maybe even work on bigger projects to support kids who are struggling like I was, maybe even start my own organization or get involved with one. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I want to make sure people know they're not alone." The Rock's response was quick, and his words were full of encouragement. "That's amazing. I have no doubt you'll make a difference. And you don't have to have all the answers right now. Just keep taking those steps forward, and you'll find the path that feels right, and you'll have all the support you need. Remember, we're always here for you." After the call ended, the girl sat in her chair for a long while thinking about the future. She had been afraid to think too far ahead, afraid of what she might find. But now the fear wasn't so loud. It had quieted down, replaced by a growing sense of excitement. She could do this. She could make a real difference in the world, no matter how small the steps seemed at first. She spent the next few days brainstorming, jotting down ideas for ways she could help others in her community and beyond. She reached out to other organizations that focused on youth empowerment, hoping to learn more about how she could make a bigger impact. She realized that while she had been a small part of a bigger story, she could now help write the next chapters, not just for herself but for others who needed a hand. At the same time, her involvement in the local youth group continued to grow. She was taking on more responsibility, helping to plan events, providing guidance to younger kids who were going through some of the same struggles she had faced. She felt like she had found her purpose, and every interaction, every conversation, reaffirmed that this was where she was meant to be. The days were filled with more than just volunteering or attending meetings. They were filled with a sense of fulfillment that had once felt impossible. She had a place now, a role, a community that accepted her for who she was, and she knew she had earned it not just by being helped, but by helping others in turn. One afternoon, while preparing for another youth event, she received an unexpected call from Cena. His voice, as always, was upbeat and filled with energy. "Hey, I just wanted to say how proud I am of you," he said. "You've come so far. I'm hearing about all the work you're doing in the community, and I just want to say you're making a real difference." I'm just doing what feels right, the girl said, a soft smile forming on her face. I never thought I'd be the one helping people. I used to think I didn't have anything to offer. But now I realize I've got a lot to give. Cena's tone softened. That's the thing about strength. It's not about what you have or don't have. It's about the heart you put into what you do, and you've got plenty of heart. You've proven that over and over again. The girl's heart swelled with gratitude. She was still getting used to the idea that people like The Rock and Cena truly saw her, not as someone broken, but as someone capable of making an impact. As the months rolled on, the girl continued to grow. She started speaking at more community events, sharing her story with those who needed to hear it. She had once felt alone, as if no one understood the struggles she was going through, but now she realized that there were so many others who were fighting similar battles. Her story wasn't just hers, it was a story shared by many. And by sharing it, she was giving others the courage to share their own stories, too. One evening, as she stood in front of a room full of young people, she shared the lesson that had been a turning point for her. It's okay to ask for help, she said. You don't have to do it all alone. And when you get the help you need, you have the power to change things, not just for yourself, but for others. We're all in this together. The room was silent for a moment, and then there was a quiet round of applause. The girl's heart filled with warmth as she realized that the message was sinking in. She wasn't just speaking to them, she was speaking with them. And in that moment, she knew her journey wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The girl's life had changed in ways she never thought possible, and now she was changing lives. And all that had taken was one simple decision: to reach out, to send that SOS, to ask for help. What had started as a cry for help had turned into something so much bigger than she could have ever imagined. And as she stood in front of the crowd sharing her story, she knew that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but it would also be filled with hope, purpose, and the knowledge that she wasn't alone anymore.